6:06, and I would like to call this meeting to order. First of all, like, thanks everybody for being super flexible. The last 6 weeks have been weird. Like, not having quorum, and then then the agenda not getting posted, so we're meeting here on a Monday, which is not our typical meeting time, but thanks for accommodating and being able to attend. We had the library director's report. Chris is not gonna be here today because she's doing the program at the library. Do you want me to read the reports, or can we just kind of submit the reports into the record?
The one question I had about the November, I'm fine with the October, the one question I had about the November minutes is she talks about classes, which I'm glad that school's starting to attend, but it says like students 3, classes 66, so I think that those might just be swapped.
I'm sorry, can you tell me where we're looking?
So November 13, director's report.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm in there.
Like third line down, students 3, classes
yeah,
66, I believe they're just transposed.
Yep.
But otherwise, and then the only other thing I took of note was that, the furnace was not running on Tuesday, October 10th, and so it's just one thing to note of concern of the condition of the furnace. Yes. And also outside, I will say the other thing, but I've heard a lot of comments, Facebook posts, and sharing just comments about the artist corner, a lot of positive feedback, so.
The art has
kudos.
been great.
Yeah.
It's been spectacular,
So I like that community engagement.
One thing I noticed is that, it just has the single numbers.
Because we agreed, we also have that spreadsheet, which I will say I did not update the last couple of months, but we
Okay.
have it, so when we want to go back and look, and I will pull, and I will share that, I can do that as a task.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to work on that too, I just noticed it was different, I think it's a lot less clunky to look at, but I think we should make sure we're seeing the trends, cause they're just those numbers, we don't see the trends.
Do you want the trends like included into it in a separate, either I can do that, or?
Chris said she
How
does
often we
type
wanna
the
do it?
numbers into a spreadsheet, so we should probably just check with her, like, we don't wanna do stuff
Duplicate?
again. She said she could post it in the shared drive. I mean, I think it's hard when we see like 12 numbers, but a couple of, for comparison might be good. So I'll just say the reports are in the new format, showing just the current.
Right, and we can either ask her to put a link to that spreadsheet
Yeah.
in the director's report. So,
Okay, I think that's good.
okay, so the September and October, or October and November library director report have been submitted as part of the minutes.
Okay.
Did everyone have a chance to review the September 2023 meeting minutes?
Yes.
Is there any changes or comments that need to be added to the minutes?
I just changed the date on here, so nobody saw the
Yeah.
draft but us, so I think it should be okay.
So if it's a matter, we just, as a public record, we just made an update and changed the, meeting minutes date of
I
reflecting
had-
September 7th. Yeah, so it's just a typo. Everything else, Krista, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
And I make a motion to accept the September 7th minutes.
Can I have a second?
Tom?
All in favor? I think you have to abstain because you were not at the meeting.
Okay, right, that's
So
right.
4 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 abstained.
I noticed you
Wait.
give those numbers, you want me to write them that way, or?
401, yeah.
Where are you at?
So 4
So we need to make another update.
approved, oh, cause I just copied it, okay, so you weren't there.
So, yeah, so I can't
But-
remember who.
Okay,
else.
nobody saw the draft but us, so I don't think we have to put anything about that, we're just
So we'll just make
correcting it,
that
right?
correction.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that, Lucinda. I was
Mhm,
copying
it's
and
okay.
pasting and not.
So I make a motion with the correction of
Okay.
attendance, but otherwise, I feel like everything else else was okay. I can't remember any guests being present.
No, we didn't have any guests at that meeting, so.
Okay, so 4, what do I say, 4 approved, 1 abstained?
Yeah, so typically it's like 4-0-1, so 4 is approved, 0 is
Nay.
nay, and 1 is abstained.
Okay.
So that's the typical format, 4-0-4-0-1.
Okay, sorry, I haven't heard of that, so, so approved and what was the middle one? Denied?
That would be like,
September
yeah,
7th.
denied or nay, so the
Nay.
yays, the
Denied.
nays, and the abstain.
Right, okay, thank you. Made to accept minutes with corrections. With typing errors. Okay, alright, thank you.
And those were very minor. Otherwise, I think both the
It's
agenda.
good you catch that, those are important.
The agenda and the minutes, I think, are so much more clear than they have been in the past, so I really appreciate it.
Alright, so town awarded funds for repairs, next step. First floor rehab, I think is still on hold. Foundation repair, I feel like I saw an email that Tom or Krista sent that maybe somebody was stopping by the first week of November to do a review.
The Bella,
Yeah, that's another,
did they do that?
I don't know. I said, feel free, you know, they didn't need me, and I never heard back. Now, what we're doing is we're dealing with his, office manager. And he goes out on jobs. She writes a letter to us and says, he might be able to stop by. I said, okay, and we never hear anything. Adam Mercurio is his name. Why don't I take it upon myself to contact him and see if he ever did anything?
Yeah, Chris may know, I didn't think to ask her about it, I mean, if he showed up.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything that he did show up.
Yeah,
But I also
okay.
didn't necessarily inquire about that as well.
So Tom will, I'll
Check
just say
the
Tom will
status.
follow up. Thanks.
I believe brick repair is also on hold for right now, or Tom, correct me if I'm
No,
wrong.
I think they're kind of the same thing, aren't they?
Well, the brick repair is
Yes.
the pointing,
Oh, pointing, yes,
Yes.
pointing is definitely on repair.
yeah. So that's on hold, I believe, we're not really doing much with the brick repair.
Okay.
The building facilities consultant, Wendy Frontiero, was here on October 27th and October 29th. Let me just confirm those dates. I'm sorry, it was October 23rd and 25th is when she was here.
Okay, and did you meet with her too?
So Tom and I met with her on the Monday, so we met with her at what, 9:30?
Didn't Chris meet her too?
And Chris met with her on Wednesday.
Oh, yes.
So you and I were here on the Monday, we met with her for about 2 hours, kind of just giving her, Tom, not me, Tom giving her the overview of the building.
I walked in the front.
And she probably spent about 5 hours here on Monday, and then she came back on Wednesday. So Monday she did the exterior of the building, and she did the attic, so her and Tom went up into the attic and did the evaluation. Then she did the exterior of the building on Monday. Wednesday she came back and she did the interior of the building, so all 3 floors of the library, so basement first and then second floor. Chris was able to find some very helpful documents related to the 1999 renovation, the renovation we did.
Those big rolled up plans?
Not those,
Oh.
but she found some other documents
Okay.
that
I
proved to be
think
helpful.
99 was
Was
the
it
front
99?
steps and some of the.
So she found documents related to that, so, Wendy has a fair amount of information, she took a ton of photos, you know, looked at everything. She wanted to go everywhere. She wanted to go into the, like underneath the building, like under the open spaces underneath. I don't know if she made it down there or not, but she definitely made it into the attic, saw a lot of spaces. So I expect that we'll have a report from her, the initial report, in the next couple of weeks or so. She said it would be a few weeks, and that was a couple of weeks ago. I feel like she did a pretty thorough inspection of the building. I mean, she was probably here for 10 hours over the course of 2 days.
You
looking at
also
the space.
provided her quite a few documents.
Yes, we gave her documents related to,
Do you have a list of that?
yes, it's in our Google Drive.
Okay.
Under her folder is a list of kind of the highlights of like outstanding money that we currently have, things that we know we need to do, and things we've kind of done in the past, and so forth, so.
She would often ask for something,
Yes,
and I would say, oh yeah, I think I can get you that. But then I think you would give it to her right there, you were actively
Yep.
transmitting things.
yep.
And it's unclear to me if I owe her anything.
I don't think you owe her anything. I think she has everything she needs, so I think she was able to get everything. I shared pretty much one of our Google Drives. I think our capital, our facilities,
Okay.
our capital projects drive folder.
Okay.
I pretty much shared that with her,
Right.
so she had all those documents. As, and then I also shared with her our agreement with the Historic Building Commission,
Oh,
because we have
the, register.
the register, because, and this will come up in a minute or two, but, any kind of changes we make to the building, we have to kind of run through the Register of Historic Buildings to make sure that they're okay with it. And so there is a deed, which I think I still have to put it in the drive. Chris scanned it for me, but I don't think I put it into the drive yet, but kind of like the memorandum of understanding between us and the, Historic Registry, so I thought that was a successful and productive, visit from her, and so I think she was happy to get the information she got. I think she was impressed that the town is so supportive of the library and has been willing to fund the library, for a variety of projects, so I think that she found that useful and, a positive thing for us, so.
So she's gonna present her report, you said in December?
In a couple weeks, I don't quite know when it is, and I don't think she's gonna present it, I think she's gonna send it to us.
Send it to us.
And then we'll review it.
Yeah.
It's a draft, at that point, when we get the first draft, that is when I think we pay her $4,200, and then when she presents the final draft is when we give her the final $1,000, it's for $5,200. And then there'll still be $800 left over in that fund that we can consult with her related to ADA type issues, cause this report's not necessarily going to address like a lot of ADA stuff, issues. That's something that she was like, we can kinda contract and talk about later. It was kind of beyond the scope of what she was planning, so. So that's good, so.
Yeah.
I'm excited, I'm looking forward to seeing her
I'm looking
report.
forward to the report.
Yes, I'm looking forward to seeing that report.
I think it may be beneficial when the final comes in that, if we're able to work with Nate of presenting it to the town too.
Yep. I would agree with that, because I think that document will hold a lot of sway if we need to put in money for funding for different projects.
And understanding of what has happened and
Mhm.
what is to come in the future.
I would agree.
Yes.
I'm sorry, you said you wanted to share it with the town?
Yeah, so, Nate does the.
Oh, yeah. Can be shared with the
It's a public
town.
forum presentation. So
Like
we
his
can
online
nominate the
things.
library director since she's not here,
Okay,
or members of the trustees with something.
okay.
I just think it would be a nice record of public, and I think it would be beneficial to present to the public.
Yep, I would agree with that.
no specific timetable on that, I'm not committing anybody to anything specific time-wise, but in the future.
CIPC grant related to heat pumps. So, Tom and Morgan were present when an individual came by and did an evaluation of
Team, yeah.
the
Four of them.
four of them came by and did an evaluation of the building. They did put together a quote, so to install heat pumps.
Can we call it a proposal?
A proposal,
I think
yep.
that's why I was confused.
So, yep, proposal, that's fine, yeah.
Okay, okay.
It's like almost $200,000, $180,000 to install a new heating system in the library. Nate submitted that as part of a grant, so like a green energy grant. So we will hopefully hear from that in early 2024 as to whether or not the town received that grant. So if we do, that will certainly go a long way in helping to fund that initiative. There's also, I also submitted a grant to CIPC, asking them to fund that as well. One thing that did come up from Nate that he asked me to present to you is, and we may have talked a bit about this at the last meeting, is our current electrical panel cannot support the proposed infrastructure,
The
you know,
load.
the
You need
load,
load.
the load
Yep.
for it. And so that is not part of the grant request because it would potentially skew it so that the return on investment wasn't there. So he has asked the trustees whether we would consider funding the electrical panel, all or in part. I'm waiting to get a quote from him on that, but it would be between $10,000 and $20,000 to do that. I think we could submit a CPA grant to help fund it. I also asked him if we do get the grant funding for it, could part of our CIPC proposal, which was for about $100,000, could they consider funding part of that as well? And then us, you know, as a show of good gesture, also funding part of it out of our own funds. So I think, I don't have the quote yet of how much it's going to cost. He said between 10 and 20. But I think if we can maybe work with CIPC, CPA, and some of our own funds, we can come up with that money. We have enough money in trust fund, we have enough money in the
we can
state
scrape
account.
together.
We have enough money
I think that we should
to
do a
it.
financial review, yeah, and that's good faith and work together.
Yes, and I think we should definitely put some of our own money towards it, so.
I concur.
But I wanna open that up to you all as to what you think about that.
I agree, I think that especially when looking at it, if they say, no, looking at the scope of this would not apply, but if one thing ends up the grant that would make things feasible, that would actually make things improvement, eventual savings, it's worth putting the money upfront to be able to.
Well, and also
ensure
the
savings
cost
in
of
the future.
repair, you know, like, I don't remember if it was in there, but the cost of fixing what we have or doing what we're doing.
Putting Band-Aids on the furnace
Yeah,
and stuff.
so that's worth something. One thing I don't know if you wanna finish talking about this, but I did have some questions about this proposal, which might be related to the electrical. It seemed odd, they want 4 in the main room with all the bookshelves and everything, that just seems strange when there's only 2 in the children's room. And then, where in the attic, I mean, I think, long range, we wanna have that part available, the attic available, right? We wanna be able to use that space or have people use that space, so I think it's a good idea to put it in there, but they just want 1 in there? I mean, it just seems like some of it was not very complete. I don't know, mean, I wasn't at the.
I could be
thing.
wrong, but I kind of feel like they were thinking often for functions and things like that, the children's rooms are 2 larger units. They're the 15K for a total of like 30. The ones in the adult room also kind of flowing into and taking care of that lobby entry area.
There's a separate one in the lobby.
Entryway, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you
So
know,
I could
I'm
be
not
wrong.
an expert on it, but I just kind of wondered why they chose these configurations versus something else. You know, like I was just trying to imagine where like, would there be one on each wall in the main room blowing? I mean, maybe you need to do it that way, I don't know, but it just seemed odd to have
I don't
4
remember
versus
them
2.
talking too much about where heads would be located until we were actually in the basement and they were talking about where they could run things through. There's discussion about where to put the units outside that we had input on, and we all kind of came to a consensus. And we talked about the removal of a tree and having it in the back corner closest to the school. Of being ease of location as well as less visible and ease of getting it into the building, et cetera.
They made some decisions on the fly there,
Mhm.
and they were concerned with routing of the umbilical cords
Yeah,
that go
okay,
between
I could see
things.
that.
And I don't think it would be out of the question to have one representative of that team come and
Yeah.
be with us and talk about the proposal.
And also maybe get a second bid just to see,
Well,
and
this-
I don't know if you saw this, but I didn't know what this VRF is, it's a different kind of system, so I sent by email this little like definition thing, cause I was confused, because this is different than what I had installed in my house, but it makes sense for a commercial thing, but I don't know if, you know, another company might come up with some other ideas.
There was also a concern with the condensate routing.
So
They-
maybe they
they-
need to have that number of units for that
Yeah,
kind of.
they came to some conclusion
I
about
see.
needing a pump.
Okay.
Well,
But
that's one
isn't
thing
it
that
true?
I had said, because they had asked if it was something to where we have sump pumps, and if we could just have, it's not a lot of condensation. There is like the drip of condensation that
Yeah.
would drip, and I don't want it in our basement. I don't wanna
Yeah.
add any moisture that may eventually turn into something
Yeah.
like mold.
Yeah.
So there are pumps and things like that to where you can then make sure, like, it's like a little tiny sump that would then force it outside. But I don't wanna add any moisture to anywhere in the building.
But I thought Nate was using this as a budget proposal.
Uh-huh. I
That
see.
sets the
Yeah.
span of the needs for the grant.
Yep.
And this is not a buy
Okay.
proposal.
Okay, yeah, I was confused
But
about that.
if
so.
we're gonna use it as establishing kind of a baseline,
In the scope.
I think inviting the guy in our December meeting, maybe that's tight for him.
And perhaps it is something that we can work with Nate. I don't know if you, I think they were open to working with it, but I also think that there was some hesitancy with regards to the historic nature of the building, and how we wanted to do that, so, I wanted to get their information.
Yeah, I was not at that meeting, so I don't know, but my understanding is that if we receive the grant and we get this money, we're still gonna have to do an RFP because it's over $10,000 and get 3 quotes.
Okay.
So I think that lends the opportunity for us to try and, make sure that one or two of the quotes is with a company that maybe focuses on historical buildings and kind of help address some of that. I do think this company probably would have a little bit of a leg up just because they did the initial. But I still think, my understanding is we're still gonna have to get 3 quotes in order to.
And when they came, everything was kinda clear, and they were great at answering our questions and things like that, and they spent time, and it didn't feel rushed at all, but it was like, I was in the moment, and I think that was September,
Yeah.
when they came,
And it's hard when you're walking around.
yeah,
You're
in the
asking
rain.
a question over there, you might even have a side conversation that somebody else didn't hear. And isn't it true, though, that we could, what's really, the players really are Nate, the trustees, and maybe Wendy should be in this, and the splits guys. And I think it'd be really nice if you could rope everybody into a room, but that might not happen. But I think we have to touch those bases and make sure we're coordinating this.
I
think-
assume that this was not at all in part with our discussion with Wendy of a possible project incorporation.
I think we mentioned to her that there was a grant applied for. And I think maybe in her proposal, when she's recommending organizations that can do work on historical buildings, that she might be able to recommend one that maybe has done some sort of HVAC kind of systems.
She asked about energy assessment, and we had an energy assessment done
Yeah.
back when Ryan was here. And she asked strongly about ADA. And she seemed to understand the historical aspect of this building. Not necessarily the specific requirements, but she's brushed up against historical structures before and has some real knowledge of it.
But you said the people that, I forget the name of the company, this,
Splits.
the Splits company, that they were concerned about the historic aspects of the building?
With regards to, yes, entrance from the outside condensate.
Well, more than that, they didn't wanna go up and start
And
drilling holes in the
running-
thing to put
and we
pipes through.
Yeah, when we discussed like where and things like that, and yes. I think we were all of mutual understanding that we did not really want them to be drilling through the brick foundation, going
Mhm.
through that. And then other places that they wanted to run, so there was consideration of that. Also, there was discussion about running up through the bathroom, up to the attic, and things like that we would discuss. So, I think that they were understanding versus if it were newer construction.
So they weren't worried about it being a historic building, they just,
I don't know that I would say worried,
Okay,
but there were considerations and.
so they seem to understand the considerations.
No, I think an opposite was true. I think they were saying, you know, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, we can drill it here, we can put it there. But we don't know if that's acceptable to the historical world.
Okay, so they seemed unsure about,
Well, they certainly weren't gonna make any decision until they had a green light from the historical people.
Which we
True.
need to consult with.
Yeah.
So we need to reach out to the historic registry, to let them know that this is something that we're considering. And have them weigh in on any kind of historical considerations we have to take into account before we go forward. So, like we cannot install any kind of
Without.
splits without consulting them.
The other thing was the upstairs historical chamber. I think they were prepared to ignore that. And it really wouldn't be sensible to heat and air condition that room if you don't have legal access to it. And so it's hinging on the ADA aspects of this.
but I feel like, you know, we would need to find out, okay, how hard would it be to add something on, because,
Later,
you know, and also, like, if it's freezing up there, you know, it might drop,
Affect
you know,
other
you know,
areas.
I think.
yeah, if you have to do it for preservation reasons, that's one thing.
Well,
But if it's
no,
for
not
human-
preservation, but just like if it's really cold there, then it's gonna make the more heat have to be generated,
Well, no more than the roof.
I guess, okay, but I feel like that is a big issue, cause we.
But I do feel like the preservation part is an important piece to take into
Well, that's
consideration.
true,
If you
yeah.
have historical documents related to the town, you wanna make sure you have a decent, humidity, air
temperature,
quality
Yeah.
type thing, so that you don't develop mold or anything like that. So,
For the
even though it
documents
might
that-
not be ADA accessible, I think just for the idea of historic preservation, I think it's important that it's taken into consideration.
Well, it's
in
been up
my
there a
opinion.
number of years, and
Well, I understand, I mean, the whole library has been,
Yeah.
you know, we're hoping and prayer here, you know, that, you know, things don't get too hot or too damp, right? Cause we don't have a strong system
Mm-hmm.
to control for all that,
Okay,
So the title of this agenda item was next steps, or next step. What is the next step?
we will hear whether or not we got the grant in early 2024.
Okay.
And that will determine, that will determine our next steps. If we don't get the grant, then I don't know if we're
Depending
gonna
on the-
take it
Yeah.
back to CIPC to see if there's funding, and funding is quite tight this year. Or how we should proceed from there, if we have to hold off for a little bit. When I submitted the proposal, I did mention that our boiler is, I think, 22 years old, and that commercial boilers typically last 15 to 30 years, probably closer on the 15 side. And I did reference the amount of oil we've spent the last 2 years and the amount of money we've spent in repairs the last 2 years. And the number of days we closed because we didn't have heat, the past year. So I think CIPC would be aware that this is a sooner rather than later type of issue that needs to be addressed. But also recognizing that, as I just said, budgets are quite tight this year, and so then the number of requests they have for capital improvements exceeds the amount that I believe that they have to fund, so.
A long time ago, we had, oh, I'm sorry, what I meant was, I'll use the word waiting, although I don't mean it that way. We're waiting for Nate to announce yay or nay on a grant, and that would be early 24, which might be March. Might we use December, January, February, and March to do the electrical upgrade? Because this building needs an electrical upgrade, and it has for years. We had it on the long-range planning. And I don't know if it hung in there or if it dropped out, or,
It's not currently in the plan,
I mean, the town plan.
like the CIPC plan?
Yeah.
It's not currently on that plan. I think what's currently still on that plan is an ADA, like $44,000 for like ADA, like hiring an architect. But a lot of the stuff fell off. Like two of the things we had on the plan, Brian asked us to remove from the warrant in 2021, and so
couple
those
years
came
ago.
off.
is this CPA?
CIPC.
Sorry.
So if you look at the long range, or if you look at the capital improvement plan for the library right now, it is a little bit sparse. So I think part of it is if we could spend the money that we have. I also think there's some reluctance to continue putting things on the capital improvement plan when we haven't been able to spend the money that we've currently had. So I think that's one of the things we've been trying to do,
Yep.
is spend this money out so that we can then go in good faith and be like, yes, you've given us money, we've spent it responsibly, we've made the upgrades we've said we would do. So right now, there's not electrical. So going to what you're saying, Tom, and I completely am on board with that, but if we do it in December, January, February, March, all the money would come out of the library budget, and we wouldn't be able to use the CIPC funds or CPA funds, cause we'd
Yeah.
have to apply for that.
Time of spending.
And that wouldn't come into effect until July, so,
Well,
which I'm fine using our own money to do all this.
I'll remind everyone, we used a fair amount of our own money on the asbestos removal and the floor and all that stuff. I think we also used a fair amount of our own money on the electrical upgrade we did for safety purposes. In other words, we got rid of an old glass fuse panel and put in circuit breakers and whatnot. And there was another one.
Roof?
No, that was,
Great.
but, we we haven't been afraid to spend our own money, and we ought to get some check marks for doing that occasionally.
Yep.
Well, maybe considering the whole, cost of it, if this is like a third of it or something, I'm just making up these numbers, but then if the trustees use that money for like a third of it, and then we're asking for, the rest of it from other sources, maybe that's, I don't know if a third makes any sense, or half, I don't know.
Some number.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to have us put in a proposal. I mean, I feel like I kinda wanna see if we get this grant first, 'cause I think that kinda drives where we need to get other funding from.
And how much?
And how much we need to ask for. But if we feel like we want to take on just the panel, which, again, between 10 and 20,000, I don't.
And we need to find somebody who can do that work, or would we hire that same electrician?
Well, we have electricians seem available.
Okay.
But we also have the same old glitch. How do we modify the panel so that we're certain, so that it's compatible with the future need of a split system, without having the split system in hand, you know?
Yeah.
So, maybe that's easier than I think, but we gotta make sure it's right.
Right, yeah, you don't wanna spend $15,000-$20,000 and find out that, like, we didn't do it right.
We didn't do it, we need two
Right.
more.
So.
Isn't it like modular, like you
It is, but
add certain things later?
It
that's
is, but
because
then
we're not
sometime-
electricians.
Yeah, I know.
But then sometimes the challenges are of codes change,
Yeah.
requirements change, and when we put things in, even if it's in good understanding of what the requirements are now.
Yep.
So we have like a catch-22.
Well, I don't wanna make more of it, but that seems to be a consistent check 22, and that's why we're hiring this Wendy to try to get ourselves arranged.
So, do we want to wait until we get Wendy's report and find out whether or not we get the grant before we explore upgrading the panel? Or
Well,
do we want
I
to?
thought you
al-
said, I thought you said Nick was gonna get us an estimate of the electrical upgrade.
Yeah.
So it must be based on something. Let's see what he comes up with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I followed up with Nate today to see if he had the quote yet, but it was a holiday, so I haven't heard back yet.
He's doing good.
He's doing
moving
great.
things along.
Yeah. So.
So are you asking for a vote to say
We need to wait
wanna
and
get
see
started on
what
this, or
comes
we
in.
wanna wait till?
Well, that's why I'm asking you all.
Yeah.
I feel like for me personally, I feel like I kinda wanna wait to see what happens, like where we get money, but I defer to the group, like.
Wait to
you-
see if
I
this
don't-
grant comes in?
I don't think we need a vote. I think what we're discussing here is the continuing saga of how do we coordinate all these projects.
I guess the question is, do we wanna vote to, make improvements to the panel now, as opposed to waiting until whether or not we hear, whether or not we got the grant?
Yes,
I wanna
but-
table and hold at least until December and wait and see if hopefully maybe December, January, when his
Yeah.
report comes in, maybe we'll have something for Nate to have a little bit more numbers that I can say, I'm now in favor of, let's go down this
Yeah,
path.
if we had $20,000 on the table, we wouldn't know what to buy,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
December's only 2 weeks away, I mean,
Is that right? No,
3 weeks
no.
maybe.
And we'll be meeting again in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean, just 'cause
Okay.
so.
Alright. Well, rather than putting a date to it, for when Wendy's report comes in and we have a chance to review it as well as electrical information, a little bit more information. I think we are kind of the same mindset, just let's get a little bit more information behind it.
So we'll discuss funding the panel
And
after
I
we
think-
review Wendy's plan.
I think we should
Wendy's plan and a quote.
quote, and we should have our own funds and financials in front of us and be able to discuss allocation of our funds.
Mhm.
So that'll just be, so we'll wanna make sure we look at the December financial report.
Yeah. So I don't know if, it's a matter of when communication from the town comes back to the director, but that's something that I would want for it to be updated versus the prior months.
So that will probably be then mid-month.
That's what I was wondering.
It's gotten delayed a bit,
So it
Because I
might be
don't
the
even-
January meeting.
I don't even know that we have the updated November's financials. I didn't see an email, but if it came in today or late last night, I didn't see it.
I don't think we do. What I've heard is that Kelly is sending the report to Nate and he's reviewing them.
Okay.
And so as a result, because he's going
It's
through and
delayed.
evaluating them, it's coming out a couple weeks later, so you're not really getting it until like mid-month for the past month. So, I know I have, like, I'm supposed to get the reports for the cultural council, and I have not gotten the November report yet, so I don't think they've come out yet. Or I haven't gotten the October report, sorry, misspoke.
It's okay that you haven't gotten November's, it's only what,
Yeah.
13th?
So, yeah, we're not even through it yet.
So, just to, finish this up, I wrote down trustees reviewed the proposal and identified some concerns. So one of them has to do with the historic, nature of the building, at least I'm confused about the attic, was there anything else? Was it just
Wendy
those two?
expressed great interest in the attic.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I think she concluded that it's structurally sound.
Well,
There's
that's
no-
good news.
No attic concerns.
So you, by
Other
the
than
attic, you mean
access.
the rooms with the historical rooms?
No, the attic.
I meant the attic.
Going up the ladder, attic.
Oh, so we shouldn't call, well, I guess we should call it the attic, but,
It's an
and
unoccupied-
so could I say
So,
third floor
unauthorized.
rooms, second
Yeah.
floor
Sloped
rooms?
roof, attic.
Second floor, basement
Floor.
first, second.
Floor rooms, currently unused.
Well,
Have you
there's-
guys been up into the attic?
There are
Do you-
three, and so is
Yes.
Wendy. There are 3 floors and an attic. The ground floor is on the
Right.
dirt. The main floor is our books.
Right.
The next floor is that
Right.
historical room, and the
Okay.
next room is the attic.
Can you
Right.
give me a brief description of the attic?
The attic is, I should show you photographs.
Okay,
And I'll send you the
And what-
architect's assessment.
Did she take photos as well?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you'll
Okay.
see photos.
Because I haven't seen it.
Great
that would
interest
be
in the
good
attic.
to put in our drive, so yeah, if you email
Yeah.
them, we can.
I believe the architects, back before we did the roof, the architect went up there and did an assessment.
Oh, okay.
Condition assessment, I think he called it. Photographs and whatnot.
Okay, but yeah, it'd be fun
I
to
can
see
find that.
It's reassuring to hear the sound versus hearing something with alarm.
Okay,
Alright.
thank you.
Alright, so, strategic planning.
Yes.
We have to do a new plan. We need to submit it to the state, I think by October of 2024. I believe is when the new plan, I don't think it's July 1st, I think we have until September or October to submit it. I am interested in your thoughts on how we would like to proceed on the strategic plan. When we did the first plan in 2019, there was a subcommittee that worked on the plan. We could go that route again. We could work on it as part of our meetings, like set aside, have shorter agendas and they set aside 30 minutes or so at each meeting to work on strategic planning. Or we could have meetings, additional meetings are just exclusively dedicated to strategic planning. You know, so monthly meetings related to business, and maybe another meeting related to planning, so. I don't know if you had an opportunity to review the 2019 to 2024 plan. I mean, there is a structure in place that we can decide if we want to continue with that, like, format that will expedite the process, cause you don't have to figure out formatting and what you're looking for, you just need to kind of figure out what changes you want to make.
Is that a prescribed format that we got from the state?
It's not a prescribed one,
Okay.
I mean, the MBLC doesn't really have necessarily a prescribed format. It was a format that I had used for other planning, I was on that subcommittee, I think I'm probably the last
Remember.
person on the committee here, cause it was me, Jane and Josephine, who were on that subcommittee. So it was just a format that I had used for other documents, but it could certainly be revised. So I guess I'm curious about how excited are you all about strategic planning? How involved do you wanna be in strategic planning?
I'm
Do
looking
you wanna
forward to
more like rubber
updating.
stamp it, or do you wanna just like have it, I don't know, I said Tom's falling underneath the table, so.
How did you feel having a subcommittee went last time? Were you able to bring recommendations to the trustees, and do you feel that was efficient, or there could have been a more efficient means of
Yeah,
doing it?
that is a really good question, Morgan. So I felt like the subcommittee worked well and helped us kind of figure out this format we wanted to use. But I also feel like, you know, we brought things back to the committee, but I think unless you're like involved, like, I don't know that everybody was fully invested in the strategic plan, because they weren't like as deeply involved in it, right? And so I think that can sometimes be a challenge if like so yeah, it got approved and everyone reviewed it and was like, this is a good plan, but the idea of like, you know, like, yeah, the investment is maybe wasn't quite as there, and so there could be strategies on ways to improve that. So, yeah.
Did the trustees feel as though we could, as homework, really dive into the strategic goals and then come with suggestions for updates? Because I feel like it's beneficial to have a subcommittee, especially when you're starting from scratch, of really forming things and then coming to the trustees with a whole outline. But when we're looking at potentially just, there will be changes, but this is more of an update, not a creation. So I almost feel as though we could have a more option to bulk of the meeting, possibly a couple of meetings, especially where it's not until October of 2024. If we set a few agenda
Like a
items
timeline.
and add it to our kind of calendar of trustees.
And then maybe we disagree that some meetings are gonna be lighter on business.
And if need be, we could also potentially then say, you know, there's actually more robust changes that we need to form a subcommittee to really dive into these topics. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah.
Tom, I think, wants to be the chair of a subcommittee.
Tom wants to leave strategic.
I'm not a strategic planner.
I'm looking forward to updated goals.
Yeah, well, that was one question I had. It says, like, there's some kind of annual action plan.
So Chris submits that every year to kind of, to the state, letting them know what we've worked on this past year.
So I think we all need to review those. And also, you know, there's specific objectives that are in that strategic plan, and so we need to figure out, like, I'm assuming
I think at
we're
some, yeah.
required to have those, some kind of, like, here's what we're gonna do,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then did we do it, you know, and I guess that's what the action
Yeah.
plan does. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like we want to make a plan, like, here's what we see we need, but there were a lot of, you know, objectives, like, maybe we need to kind of
Pare it down a little bit.
pare it down a little bit.
Yeah, and giving context too, is like we'd never had I'm not gonna say never, we had not had a strategic plan in many, many years, so this was the first one in quite a while. And having a strategic plan also then allows us to apply for MBLC grants, whether it be building grants or program grants or any other kind of grant. So this was an effort to kind of get us back into a stronger standing with MBLC. I would also say we need to do, one thing we certainly need to do is a community survey. We did that back in 2018, 2019, and I think prior to me joining the trustees, Yale hired a consultant, and I think you did some focus groups too.
Mhm.
You did a couple focus groups, and then Josephine, Jane, and I developed a community survey that we sent out. So we probably want to do another community survey to understand what our constituents need and want. And Tom, I know you had talked about bringing it also to the select board, which I think is important as well. I think it's important for us to have an idea before we bring it to the select board, but I think it's important to kind of get buy-in from the select board as well. Just, I mean, while we don't report directly to them, you know, they are an ally in our, you know, in the running of the library.
I think some of the reports also that we're now tracking and that Chris has, and that we see those trends that we're able to include into our strategic goals of where we've been and where we foresee. So there's the community of what they say they want, and then the actual by the numbers of how is our library used and how has it historically been used, and then to see in 5 years, does that change?
Yep, exactly. And I think we've come a long way in 5 years. I mean, I think the data that we're collecting is really good and is strong, and we have a strong pattern of data.
So a big change, I think 2019 may have been one of the last years that Hubbardston Center School had a librarian and an actual library. And in those 5 years, they don't have a school library anymore. So our, part of our functionality in the community now, and how that's changed, and a continued partnership potential.
If it's helpful, one thing maybe I can do, and I can work with Chris on this, is go through the strategic plan and kind of do like an update for each objective as to like whether or not we've been achieving it, or whether or not it's something we started, or if it's something we've completed, just so you can track the progress of what we did over the last 5 years. And it was a very big plan, so like I'm okay if like we didn't hit everything on it, and I think MBLC is okay if we didn't hit everything on it. But kind of getting an idea of where we maybe excelled and where we fell short, and then, you know, figuring out like how to go from there.
Yeah.
I'm happy to work on a subcommittee if,
We end up forming one.
yeah, I have some experience doing planning. But I feel like we should all, you know, as Chris submits these reports to the state, but I feel like, you know, we could just gather them together and look at them just to get an idea of, you know, some of us haven't been here this whole time, so, you know, like I don't really know all the different things we've been doing, and then that'll give us an idea of how, what we might wanna put into the plan for the future. So we'll review the annual.
Yep, so maybe
Action
yeah,
plan.
we'll work together. There is a strategic planning folder in the shared drive. We'll work to maybe get it a little bit more populated with
Okay.
the annual action reports. I don't know if the survey results from 2019 or 2018 are in there. I'll have to look and see.
They're in the
Are they in-
plan, in the actual,
Oh, they're in the plan
Yeah.
itself, okay.
yeah.
So, yeah, so maybe do a thorough reading of the plan, action reports. We'll try and do like a little like how far we've progressed on each of them, just so we have an idea. And then we'll put it on next month. We'll just try and have it as a standing item. And some months we'll try and dedicate more time to it. Does that sound okay?
I think so, at least as a start.
So we're not sure if we're forming a subcommittee.
Right, as of right now, we're not
Okay.
forming a
Okay.
subcommittee. Right now, we're gonna try and do it through committee.
Okay.
But if we find that we need to do a subcommittee, we will
Okay.
go back and explore that.
And Krista volunteers to head it, should we need one.
Yeah, I can do that. I wrote down subcommittee, this is wrong now, but subcommittee will make a timeline, and that we wanna have a combination of
I would-
working separately and extra meetings, or we haven't
I would
really
take that out,
decided
because I think
Okay.
that what we decided was that we'll work as a group.
Okay,
If need be, we'll form that subcommittee.
okay.
But we're not
Got it.
forming a subcommittee at this time.
Right.
Okay.
And
So
we'll
we're
try
gonna
and
set
have-
aside a part of each meeting?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Library Policies Subcommittee.
So speaking of subcommittees.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It's been really wonderful working with Krista. So we've met a couple times.
Agreed. Yeah.
If time allows, I think, not even think, we would like to present an update to the mission, visions, and goals as they stand now, and that's why we keep kinda laughing of, we've used the 2019 through 2024 goals from the strategic plan as our current goals and just kinda copied them over, but looking to update the strategic goals, we'll want updated goals for our policies and stuff. And our vision of how to share the policies, what we've noticed is that there's a bit of a web. And a lot of policies kind of like, where should we put this? It could relate to different places, but we're getting closer and closer. We've touched on all the policies we've wanted. We've reviewed them a couple of times, at this point. And in the near future, early 2024, I think we'd like to present them to the trustees.
So, just to piggyback on that, we identified some main categories of these, of the policies, but as Marie just said, there's, like, does it go under this or does it go under this, cause they're kind of related, so she has some good ideas of how we can make it clear, you know, so they might be referred to in more than one place, but we've already approved some policies, which we may want to slice and dice slightly differently, so, you know, those are included in the master list, but we put them kind of at the bottom because we've already approved them, but now we're realizing that, you know, some
We
of
may
them-
need to update them.
Sure.
Yeah, or at least, you know, take pieces and, you know, cause they have like we had the building facilities and displays all together because it seemed like a good idea and that we could get all that covered, but now it seems like maybe they need to be separated a little bit, so.
Okay. Yeah, so just let us know when you would like to do that and we can carve out a chunk of time.
Well, I
Give
think.
me an idea of how much time you
So,
would need to, so we can kind of.
What we would
structure.
like to start with is starting with the mission, vision, and goals in December. And then we will have a better idea of when we're ready to present the bulk of the policies, some nice
Okay.
winter reading.
Mhm.
So the mission vision would replace what's currently in the strategic plan, is what you're suggesting?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's really, you know, it's very similar, just an update
Sure.
of, you know,
Wording.
based on trying to.
You'll see, it's
Yeah.
very nice, we've worked on the wording
Sure.
quite a bit, but
Yeah.
it probably, we're spending more time explaining than it actually
Yeah.
would take to read.
But we just thought would make sense to start with that,
Okay.
and then we'll go with the
And then we'll
others.
set the tone
Okay, okay, so December we'll talk about mission and vision
Mhm.
and goals.
and goals.
Mhm.
Okay,
Just a simple question, I'm not sure what kind of a response it'll get, but when we have a meeting like that, would it behoove us to come here some night and have a meeting that isn't the regular trustees meeting?
Mm-hmm.
We just go and sit there for 1 hour of that's the only thing we're doing. And I know that it's hard to work things into people's schedules and whatnot, but it seems to me that would be an advantage.
I
For the
would be open
policies?
to that, I'd be open to that.
It's still posted, it's still a public meeting.
Yeah.
It's still a library trustees meeting, but we're going there with one agenda item.
okay.
Everybody reads it ahead of time, everybody reads it then.
If
comes
you
up.
are open to that, that's something that Krista and I have both discussed as well, because we're noticing, and that's what I think we were both going back after our last meeting and saying, the wording works really good in one place, but also really applies somewhere else, and how we want to kinda move and meld things. It would benefit us to hear from you guys and read through all the policies, rather than say, initially we were thinking of saying, okay, please read this policy and let us know what you think of this, then read this policy. And I think instead, if we,
Read
exactly,
Read 'em,
so instead if we just wait until we're ready with all of them in really good condition to show you all of them and get what you guys think, rather than piecemeal it. Does Does that make sense?
And if you wanna buy in, you gotta drag everybody to the table.
I'll bring brownies.
Yeah, we could definitely make it fun. But that would be a kind of a model if we wanted to do it for the strategic plan as well.
Mhm.
It's a tough time of the year, if we can do it now, we can do it, in a continuing.
Yeah, well, the
basis.
only thing we have for this year would be the mission, goals and vision, I think.
Mhm. And then
we'll have the
early
other
next year
ready,
we'll have
yeah.
the others.
Sounds great.
Well, it's November, whatever it is,
13.
do we wanna try to pin an evening?
I think in December, we will be ready to say another date, but I don't think we're comfortable at this time. I
Okay.
would like to have another subcommittee
So
meeting to
it'd
see
be an
where we're
actual,
at,
would be an actual January
Yeah,
table session.
yeah.
probably,
Okay.
yeah.
And we can use the email to figure out
Yeah.
dates we can
Okay.
do offline, yeah.
Yep.
Alright, moving right along, meeting process discussion. Just wanted to bring up a couple of things that, people had mentioned to me, related to meetings. One would be, given that we're moving into the winter season, so with poor weather and people catching colds and so forth, do we want to provide an option for trustees to attend meetings remotely? I talked to Candace about this, if we offer that option to trustees, it also has to be posted on the agenda so that anybody can join remotely, so any public person can attend remotely as well, so it's not something we can just,
Mhm.
just do for us, it has to be posted. Which I wanted to ask Chris, did we ever get a subscription to Zoom? Do we ever get our library subscription to Zoom? I know we had talked about having our own Zoom account.
I don't know. So Candace said it's possible.
She said we can absolutely do a remote session, we just have to have it posted on the agenda so that any community member could join as well.
The link will be right listed.
Yep.
Right. I
Yep.
think that's what we did before.
I have
So-
no problem with that.
I have no problem with that either.
So we just need to see, I guess I should check with Chris to see if we have our own Zoom account or how we get one from the town. Typically, when we've done it in the past, I've just used my work Google Meet account, which I'm not going to do that, just cause it's my work.
Could we use the
Let's-
Google Meet through the trustees?
You could, but because it's not a like a university or a certified, like it's not the beefed up version of Google Meet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think
See.
it works quite as well, but it's something we could definitely test out, that we could test the Hubbardston trustees email, Google Meet, and see, does it time out, how easy is it to let other people in, and so forth.
Would Candace know about that, or somebody?
She wouldn't probably know about the Google Meet, but
How about
that's
the
something.
TV manager person?
We can ask Bridget after the
Brittany,
meeting.
is it?
Oh, well,
Brittany,
Bridget is doing.
Bridget,
the meeting.
yeah, so I think there's options, I think one, we can either use the Zoom account, find a Zoom, whether we have one or.
We
I thought
approved
we had
that.
talked that we had approved it, I just don't know if we ever followed through on it.
So why don't we just say that we, the
And
library
if not, we'll
trustees-
test the Hubbardston trustees Gmail, Google Drive,
Google Meet.
Thank you. To see how well that works with letting outside people in, and if it times out,
What do the selectmen do?
they
Can't-
use Zoom,
And you can attend
yeah,
remotely.
I believe they do,
But we
yeah.
had a problem with Zoom if there was more than one meeting or something.
They had a limited number of accounts,
Yeah.
right? So I think that was part of the problem.
Okay.
And we'd have to figure out how to set it up.
Connect and technical
Like-
assistance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'm open to it, I just don't ask me how.
I remember that the purchase of a Zoom account was something like $150. It was,
Yeah,
nothing to solve this problem.
yeah.
Or at
So I
least
think so I actually think we do
start
have
to
one
solve it.
at the library, I just need to check with Chris and figure out. I'm not a Zoom person, I mean, I attend Zoom meetings, but I'm a Google Meet person, so that's what we use in my institution, so I guess what I know. So setting
Well,
up
we could,
Zoom.
if there was a commercial version of that, we could consider, I mean, we just said Zoom, cause that's what we thought was available, but.
Don't we qualify as a nonprofit?
No, I'm just saying if there was a cost to it, we could go for that instead of Zoom, I don't think that
I'm
matters.
fine with participating in either, I just don't know how to
Yeah.
set it up, so I think it's more if we need assistance saying that.
I don't know anything, I just get an email, I click on it, I come into the meeting.
But so, that would be the recording, like, we don't have to have somebody
No.
here, do we have to
Yeah,
have
but
somebody
still
here?
be a
meeting in
recording.
person,
But
you
we
just
could
might have one or two people who maybe are joining
Okay.
remotely,
Okay,
so.
okay.
We need a TV and all that stuff.
Well, I
I
mean,
mean,
I.
oh, that's right.
So either we could hook it up to there, or if we're just doing it, like, if we just do it
Just
old
a
school,
laptop.
it'll just be, like, we'll just turn the computer around and roll waves high and, you know,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
So, you know, so I don't know that.
Well, with Zoom, you could do it on the phone as well.
Yeah.
So.
It's doing with Google Meet
Yeah.
too, you could do.
Yeah, I think, yeah, so.
So this is all so to make a quorum, is that it?
It's to make quorum, and it's also, yeah, it's mostly to make quorum, so we have enough people at the meetings, and also just recognizing that kind of in the winter time, it's sometimes harder, cause the weather's bad.
Also
We
avoid
get sick.
spreading diseases.
Yeah,
So I
if
was
someone has
shocked
a
by the
cold-
snow tonight, if it was another night, all of a sudden the weather changed.
Yeah.
More, okay.
Yeah, so, and then the other thing that came up was the idea, the cultural council has like alternate people on it that are not like, I don't really understand how, you might, Morgan, do you understand how it works, cause I don't
So
really.
my understanding is that in the instance that they do not have the quorum, especially given that cultural council has such a short window where you guys have to review proposals and vote, if that's the right term, the alternates could take the place of one of the members.
Yeah, because the cultural council, you have to have all 5 members present in order to be able to vote, so it's not even having quorum, you have to have all 5 people in the room to vote. And so we were talking about, is that something we wanna think about with trustees, is that even an option to have alternates? I emailed Nate to find out, that was on one of the email, it's on the, I had a big list of things I sent him to
Mhm.
ask him about, so.
Doesn't the charter do 5 members per board, and aren't there 6 on this board?
There is 6 on this board.
But I thought the charter was set the 5 for
I
board
think the
members.
charter's specific, for instance, planning board has 5.
But the trustees is different?
Conservation Commission, I think, has 3.
Oh,
I think the charter lists them,
okay, I didn't really
As,
do
uh,
that.
Yeah, the trustees are like a separate section, I think.
Okay, so they're outside of the charter?
Well, it's in the, I don't know the right
No.
wording, it's in
the charter doesn't universally say everybody is 5. It says different things about different committees.
Okay,
So like,
The way I remember it.
right,
so like for town organization versus.
right.
So, I don't know if you have thoughts, if you want us to explore that further, or.
If you've emailed him, let's wait to see what he says.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've only had one,
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a
Yeah.
huge issue of not having
we're
quorum.
not plagued with
So-
this problem.
No, and we've been pretty good, so.
Be careful what you say.
Plagued?
Having just come out of lockdown, can you throw out plague?
I mean, one of my concerns with having alternates is we have so many continuing things, and to have somebody who pops in like periodically and like doesn't necessarily have the context for everything. I worry a little bit about that, but
I
I'm not
think it would be in the
necessarily-
context of like, in the very hopeful vision that you have a lot of people interested in being library trustees. And it's the way of kind of coming in as an alternate and shadowing for a number of months without necessarily having a position of
That's an
responsibility.
interesting take on it, yeah.
And
then
gain
grooming
to
people.
shadow to then be on.
And grooming people to become, yeah.
I only know of one board that has a permanent alternate. That's the planning board. Because they
Yeah.
have to have votes
Found
on
this thing.
time,
We do
and
have
sometimes it
different- we seem to
requires a
have different
supermajority.
numbers. Can you read it?
So they have to have a number of people.
Yeah, I can say it, sort of.
And he can step in, or she.
I'm just
Oh.
showing her the charter, it just,
Board
they
of
have
Health is
different
5.
numbers. Would be
Finance,
different numbers of
5.
members.
Library trustees, 6 members, terms of 3 years. Huh,
and each of it's 2, and then the next year is 2, and
Right,
the
they
next year
always,
is 2.
they always alternate that.
Yeah.
So people overlap.
I think it
Um,
would be hard to have an alternate unless it was somebody who was thinking about,
Why did they go
Running.
with 6 for the library with,
We're special.
well, I just know how hard it is. I mean, they've been begging for people like cultural council and all, and yet they went with 6 for library.
Well,
No.
I think the 6 for the library was long before the charter was formalized.
Yeah.
Or this charter.
Yeah.
and the library director used to serve on the trustees. You know, I was looking at those old, we pulled together the list of everybody who had served, and the library director was actually a member, which I don't think that's supposed to happen, but maybe she could serve as an alternate if needed. I don't know if that
Yeah.
I don't think we have
allowable.
to strain too hard to solve a problem that might not be a problem.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll wait and see if I get a response back from that. Moving on, just a quick announcement, the Hubbardston Volunteer Appreciation Event. Did everybody receive an email about that?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanna make sure it didn't just come to chairs. November 20th, at 5:30 at the senior center. So if you are planning on attending, you should RSVP by November 15th to Tony. I did not get a chance to go last year, I got sick that week, and so I know I had to miss it, but Krista, I
Yeah,
think you
yeah, I
went and,
yeah.
was it
Bob,
Bob or
I
was
think
it
Bob
Tom?
was there.
Bob was there?
Yeah.
Was it?
They gave like a little certificate and had food. It's nice. You can meet other people, other committee members.
Yeah, so if you're available, a week, next Monday is
Next
when it is,
Monday.
yes, consider coming out, so.
What was the date of that email? I don't remember.
It came out on November 6th, so it came out last week. I can forward it to you, Tom.
Well, I don't know.
That's okay, I have
My
here.
phone's email isn't the same as my computer's email for some
Really?
reason.
Oh.
I can't send emails from my phone. I can receive them. And,
Well, I sent it to you, Tom, so you'll
Very good.
get it at some point.
thank you very much.
So just a reminder about that. And then finally, standing item, review calendar for trustees events. I'm looking at that. We are in November. We should begin planning for CPC grants. I mean, they were called for earlier in the year, but I think they kinda accept them on a rolling basis, so we could probably still submit something in January if we wanted to. I don't know if we have anything, or if we wanna wait
This
till we
says
see-
submit in January.
Submit in January, yeah. But they did the call
Oh.
earlier in the year, so I think when I did this, I was basing it off of kind of the process we used last year, where we were going to submit something in January.
Can you remind us what these are these?
So, so community preservation.
Preservation, okay.
Grants, is a committee that gets funding from the state.
I believe
And-
it's based on some kind of real estate
Right.
ratio.
Yeah. And it people can apply for different types of funding to kind of support preservation initiatives, so the library's been a recipient of CPC grants, several of them. But things like the, playground remodel
Mhm. And
was
the
part of
church.
CPC, the church,
Yeah.
Mount
the
Jeff.
Habitat for
Mhm.
Humanity, house,
The,
you
the
know.
money is to be allocated by percentages, and there's a formula or a listing. It's open space, recreation, historical preservation, and a couple other categories.
I wonder if we could use this for any part of this, the heating thing, but also, the new sidewalk ends and then our steps begin, so I don't know if we can, ask for something for that. I mean, we need to find out what Wendy's report says and all, but,
Was Wendy's report going to help address sidewalk, where the sidewalk
I don't know
ends?
if it was going, I mean, I'm hoping she
Curious.
noticed it.
well, at
Yeah.
least the
You know.
you know, this, the front, the entranceway, I guess is what I'm
I'm trying to
thinking.
remember when she came, what the state of the sidewalk
It was,
was.
so the front, the sidewalk in front of the library had been done,
Okay,
so that looked all nice and
So the
white
extent
and
of it,
pristine,
yeah.
and then when you come up our steps, you have that chunk of like 20 feet or so, that's not so good.
So we could consider
That could
asking for,
potentially be,
I'd really like to address also that apron, I guess, that would go around to the lift.
yeah, yeah, because it's lawn right now,
No, we haven't, there are the
right?
little,
Oh, okay.
It's granite blocks.
yeah,
Okay.
with the posts that still come out too.
Lift access, okay. Oh, we could do that in December.
Yeah, we can talk about it in December. And hopefully we'll have Wendy's report within the next couple of weeks, and that might actually prioritize something for us. It might be like, we really wanna do the sidewalks, but like her report says like X needs to happen, like
Mhm.
now, you know, so.
Okay.
Alright, anything else, just outstanding items or?
On
I'd
the-
like-
oh, go ahead.
I wanted to compliment Bob on his
Oh.
effort to pull together the poets session. I thought that was really
That was
good.
a very nice session, yes.
I wish more people had attended.
Yeah.
I wish we had been, figure out some way to advertise these things.
I'm grateful that the special town meeting was as short as it was, I just wish it wasn't in conflict with the special town meeting.
Well, I think, there's an opportunity to have one or both of the same people back or different people. But a session like that, I found it really, really good.
I know that the
Okay.
first poem stood out when I walked in, it was very emotional and moving, and
Yes, it was.
it still stands out to me,
Mm.
so. Science teacher one, were you there for that? Or
I
I think you
don't
may have
know.
came in after that one.
Well, there was two people speaking, I call him the standing up guy and the sitting down guy.
It was the sitting
The
guy.
sitting down guy.
The sitting down guy, his first read was emotional, I heard it.
That's teacher.
It was a very nice.
I read his books as well, and he's got a lot of emotion throughout all of them. This is not a happy flowers poetry.
Oh, no.
This is
A
pretty
work through
severe
life.
stuff.
Mhm.
His brother dies, his father dies, it goes on and on, my goodness.
Yeah, it was a nice event, so hindsight,
Sorry, Miss-
like we should have, when the meeting was ending, be like, hey all, like poetry reading, come on over, you know, cause we had an audience there, all they had to do was like walk
Yeah.
100 yards, you know, but I didn't think of that until after I got
After.
into the library, so.
Well, I give Bob credit for bringing it up and making it happen in the
Yeah.
day.
Yep, it was
Yeah.
a good program, so.
And based off the parking tonight, I think the other library event taking place, drawing tonight, was a success. I look forward to hearing the numbers.
Yeah, those are always popular at the art.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask this future agenda item, cert,
So that's something that I'll bring up
kiosks?
next
Okay,
month.
I didn't know what that
Yep.
was, okay. Great.
So,
Yeah, there's a few things I took off the agenda, cause I knew Chris was not gonna be here,
Mhm.
so, and then Morgan asked to put this on, but I had a full agenda and I kind of wanna try and keep us.
Sure.
so under that future agendas, we'll also, there's policy review, is that like the subcommittee policy review as well, that was under standing items? So likewise in December, one of the things that we'll add is that mission, vision, goals.
Yep.
And we'll also send it ahead, so it
Yeah.
can be added to the agenda so everybody can read, perhaps,
Yes, that'd be
that would be
great.
good.
I can
can
send
just
it with
share.
the minutes when I see it,
Beautiful.
And I'll link it back into the agenda then when I send out,
Okay.
and I will,
And it should be noted, the way that we're trying to do it, we're trying to be very, I believe it still reads, so what is present is still above, but then our suggested revisions are below, so that it keeps in mind what is there now, and then what our
Perfect.
revisions are.
great. Any other issues not reasonably anticipated? folks, it is 8:26. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll second that.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
You second?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, yay. Alright, thank you all, this was a good meeting, I appreciate you coming
We
out on a
anticipate
Monday